All right, everyone, thanks for sticking with me. Here we are in the editing portion of Portal Tricks, and as you can see here, we start off with a couple kind of just establishing shots. And I find that with establishing shots, you can either have them either be really close shots or really wide shots. Either of those kind of things go toward just establishing the scene. So here we have this kind of bag blown in the wind. I thought that was kind of nice. And then the wall, the beautiful backdrop as well. Then we cut right into him doing this number, and it's just pretty standard either back and forth type shots. So we have this shot for Matt, then this shot for the Jeff character, then we also have this shot from behind them right here to kind of establish where we are in space. So we are just in an alleyway. It's pretty simple stuff. We just have regular answering shots. So yeah, really the only interesting thing I did in this program, this is DaVinci Resolve, by the way. You can do this in pretty much any program of your choice, like Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro or DaVinci, is I did some face masks, which you can see if I jump over to the color page. So you can see right here, I outlined Matt's face with a mask and then just kind of tracked it to him so that it would stay put with him. And really, I find that this goes a long way to kind of making their faces stand out, because here, let me just select on this one, here's without the mask, his face looks kind of dark and just not as pronounced, I would say, and then here is with the face mask back on. So it goes a long way as just to drawing the viewer's attention to the actor or the actress. One thing I did with these shots that you might have noticed is that I did add a little bit of artificial camera shake to them because these shots were locked down, whereas these shots of course, were definitely not. They were all handheld, and I wanted them locked down so I wouldn't have to change anything throughout the scene whenever I was compositing the portal into the scene. So yeah, they were locked down, but that just means you have to add the camera shake back in afterwards, which is pretty easy to do. Again, you can do this in Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve. If I go up to the inspector, and on my Open Effects tab, it's just called Camera Shake, and then you have all the different parameters that you can adjust, and you can find it in your effects library. So if I just go to Open Effects, click on that, and then you can type in Shake. Then you can type in Shake, and there it is. You just click and drag it onto your clip. So all of the clips in the alleyway that were locked down from behind them, they all had that camera shake filter turned on for them. So if we move on down here, we just have, again, just regular answering shots. Again, we have the handheld filter on these kind of clips just to make them match with the handheld feel of the other ones. And then this is kind of where we get into the actual portal part. I'm going to cover this in a separate section, probably just diving into the visual effects aspect of this. That might be an entire different video altogether. So I'm just going to kind of skip over this right now, but basically all I did was just created those assets, brought this footage into a program called After Effects, and then manipulated everything the way I needed to, and then exported it out, and then I just drug and dropped the new video onto this timeline. So here's with it without, and as you can see, we have just the regular clip, and then here's with it with the new clip just layered on top. And keeping in mind the whole top-down rule that all editors work by, whatever's on top is going to show up, going to take priority over whatever's on bottom. So let's keep going here, and then we have his reaction. This is one of the things I just mentioned in the lighting segment when we were talking about the lighting, is that we did have some actual practical lighting here. You can see it kind of flickering on his face. And in a couple clips, I did accentuate that effect a little bit. I don't think in this one I didn't, but in a couple of them it was a little too subtle. So as long as you're getting a little bit in camera, a little bit of that practical light kind of in camera, it's really makes it much easier for you to go in after the fact and kind of push that effect even farther for the viewer to really buy into it. So for instance, in this one, I believe, yeah, I had a couple masks working, so this one, yep, so this one was just kind of keyframed up and down as far as, if I go over to my curves, as far as the exposure, so it was kind of jogging up and down for me. So if I go over here to my keyframes, over here on the right, you can see that I have it kind of just like And that's all those keyframes that you're seeing down there, that is the opacity of it. So I raised up the exposure of whatever is on this node, and that was just his face. Remember, I had just his face selected right here, so here's with it off, and here's with it turned back on. So I would just raise that exposure, and then I was just keyframing the opacity. And then here we have another visual effects shot. Then we just go back to our practical ones, visual effects again, that's where it kind of dies out. And again, that has the handheld filter on it. One cool thing that a lot of editors have nowadays, which is really, really great, is what's called adjustment clips. So basically adjustment clips sit on top of other clips, and whatever parameters, whatever effects and color corrections and things like that you apply to your adjustment clips, it affects everything underneath. So it's a really, really great way of applying a lot of different effects to several clips at a time. For here, in this case, I was changing out this clip very often because I would export one from After Effects. I'd put it in here and then say, okay, maybe it needs to be a little bit brighter or it needs to sparkle a little bit more. And so I was always changing this clip out, and I didn't want to have to keep replacing my lens flare, which is what this guy is. So if I scroll back here, you can kind of see a little bit right there. It's pretty subtle, but if I turn it off, you can kind of see it goes away. It's just kind of adding a little bit of realism to it with a artificial lens flare in there, because if this portal was that bright in real life, it would be flaring the lens quite a bit. So you would get a little bit of like fogging on the lens and a little bit of loss of contrast. Alrighty, so we see him there, and then he pops open the portal. Again, this one I remember definitely was one where we cut out his face. And so here, let's see if I go down to my mask. So here's his face, it is tracked and everything. The other thing we did was we kind of brought these highlights down. I found that they were clipping a little bit. This is one of the really great things about those like Blackmagic cameras or cameras that capture a high dynamic range, is that you can kind of bring these highlights back down, because this is what it looked like without it. They were just clipping just a little bit. And you also have to keep in mind what kind of monitors people are going to be looking at this on. So if somebody was watching this on a smartphone, smartphones can't really reproduce all of the dynamic range that a normal computer screen or normal high dynamic range TV would have. So this part would automatically clip. So I made the decision to go ahead and just select that and bring it back down to where you could actually see what was going on. Closes up the portal. Again, that's another VFX shot. And then we have another mask right there. And then we had, not many people noticed, I don't think, but we did have a couple sparks kind of appearing right here. So if I kind of play this back, yeah, just a couple little sparks right there that kind of pop up. Dan Robinson, our producer, kind of mentioned that to me, and I was like, oh yeah, that'd be it. And I thought that would be a really good idea, so I went ahead and did it, although it is really, really subtle. And then, of course, we have this. This obviously is a visual effect that was not there. And then we go to right here. This was an interesting task, and I won't go too much into it, but basically, if I turn off all these things, you can see that his screen he had one of those screen protectors on, and I didn't even realize it in camera when we were shooting it, but he had one of those screen protectors on, and it was kind of giving a weird cast to the screen and also making like a rainbow reflection. So I just used a couple windows to kind of cut that out and dilute that back down to where it just looks like a regular screen. And then same thing right here, this is a visual effects shot, and we cut to black with our FPTV logo and all the good things with credits. So thank you all for watching. That's pretty much it with the editing. It was pretty by the numbers, pretty simplistic editing all the way around. It really was just the visual effects that took a bit to get the hang of, I would say.